All right, so now we're going to get to example 2. So same thing, we got to select all expressions that show the distance between A and B. So we're going to see which one of these also equals the distance. So first thing is we got to find the distance. So we have from -10 to -3. So I'm going to count the spaces. Do not count the numbers. Don't be like 1, 2, 3. No, it's the space in between them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the distance for number 2 is 7. Okay. Now, on your digital notebook, like I said, if you do not have paper, this is how you show your work. So you type a distance 7. Okay, now we have each one that we got to test out. So we have -10 minus 3. The first thing I want you guys to understand, this is saying -10 back 3. Your answer has to be more negative than the first number. -10 minus 3 means I'm going backwards on the number line, right? The minus is always to the left. So that means I'm moving to the left of the number line, not to the right of the number line. So those of you who would say that it's -7, that's wrong, because that would be -10 plus 3. But minus 3 is I'm moving further to the left on the number line. So you could have used the number line to solve that, but -10 minus 3, right? Like I said, that means I'm going backwards on the number line. It would be more negative. It's also the same as -10 plus -3. They're the same thing. So 10 negatives plus 3 negatives equals 13 negatives. So I know that A is not my answer. So we could just cross that off. And you would type the same thing here on your digital notebook if you don't have paper. Okay, part B. You had the same thing, absolute value, -10 minus -3. So the absolute value of 10 is 10 minus the absolute value of 3 is 3, which equals 7. So yes, B is one of our answers. So I'm going to check that off. Definitely not A. Okay, next we have is C, which is 3 minus 10. So I'm going to put C here. So if you're typing, you could just pause this video, make sure you type all of the work. This is 3 take away 10. Again, if you're on the number line here, this is literally saying you're at 3 and you have to go back 10, which means you're definitely going to be in the negatives, right? So you have 3 minus 10. That's the same as, we could just practice this, 3 plus -10. Okay, so remember what I taught you guys here. There's 2 ways you could solve this. You could either draw out the 3 positives and the 10 negatives. Cross out the positives and the negatives, because these are different signs, and we're left with 7 negatives. That's -7. Or your other option is, remember, these are different signs, which means we have to find the difference between them. That's subtraction. So remember I told you guys you take the 2 numbers without the signs, subtract with the bigger number. 10 minus 3 is 7. But I have now more negatives than I do positives, so my answer would be -7. Regardless, 2 ways for you to solve it, but the distance is not -7. The distance is 7. So the most important thing to understand here is that also does not count. We do not circle it if it's -7. Those are two different numbers. Also, the distance is never negative. It's always positive. So C cannot be the answer. Okay, so we're going to do one more here, which is -3 minus -10. Oops. Sorry. Okay, so here we have D, -3 minus -10. Okay, first thing I know is the two negatives facing each other become a plus. So that equals -3 plus 10. And here, right, we have different signs. So the only difference here is really, these are different signs. If I subtract 10 minus 3, I get 7, but this time I have more positives than I do negatives. Do you see how here, different signs, I subtracted that, 10 minus 3 is 7, but here I had more negatives than positives. This time I have more positives than negatives, so this would be a +7. So D is also my answer. So your answers would be B and D. So I just want to clarify, like, you really, really, really need to make sure that you show all of your work for each step. And if you are on the digital notebook, you're still required to do this, but obviously it's always easier to write this down. So if you have questions about this, please feel free to call me. And if you're stuck on solving these expressions, you could always go the number line route. Like, you could use the number line if you need it. You could use the plus and the minuses, or you could use the strategy where you subtract and then figure out if you have more negatives than positives. Either one would work.